So I'm joined today by Debbie Gannon from the Shibashi Training Academy, who also runs a Tai Chi and Holistic Health Centre in Hinckley in Leicestershire. Welcome to the One Chi Project, Debbie.
Thank you very much for asking me to be part of it. Thank you.
Wonderful. Always our pleasure. It's great to find like-minded people. So we'd like to get to know you a little bit. So would you mind introducing yourself and giving us an idea of how you came across Qigong and yeah, how did it find you, or how did you find it?
Well, it definitely found me. Started about 30 years ago. I was on holiday with my family, and by the pool there was someone doing a get up and move session, and I've always liked to move, and so I went and joined it. And at the end of it, he did this thing, I don't even know what it was, and each day he sort of added an extra arm position on. We sort of breathed in and out, and then the next day it was breathing in and out, and I didn't even know what it was, but I was like, wow, it just hit me. So luckily enough, 6 months later, I was at a spa day, which is a very rare event in my life, and I went to every single class known to man, and one of them was Tai Chi, and we did the exact same movements. I mean, how bizarre is that when you think of the wide scope? But it was obviously to push me on my little path, and I thought, it was Tai Chi. So when I came back, I poked around a bit, and the local college was doing those things where you signed up for 10 weeks and did a course. And and I rang, it was starting on the Monday, and I rang up on the Friday, and they said there's one place left. So you talk about things unfolding, and I went along, and I just knew, it was one of those things, I knew in the first 10 minutes that I was going to do it for the rest of my life. And then I also knew I was going to be teaching it. So at the end of that period, I went to the teacher and said that to her, thinking she must have thought I was a bit crazy. I'm 6 weeks, 8 weeks in, and I was saying, I want to just do this forever and I want to teach it. But then she tailored my training to help me with that. So I joined the club. So I came from a sort of Tai Chi background, but the club itself, we did forms, but we did Qigong movements, we did meditation, we talked about the 5 elements, we talked about the meridians, we did massage on each other. So it was a really comprehensive introduction to the whole thing, which is really what sparked me. It was much bigger than just it, because it's part of a bigger thing, isn't it? And as some of us became assistant instructors, we realised to help the club, we would all take a different discipline and maybe focus on that to keep it developed. And I took the massage and trained in massage and then developed into that. But what happened to me was I found that it had to be everything I heard, all the breathing exercises we would do, we had different names for them. They were called Kai Men or Dao Yin exercises, not Qigong. Qigong was everything we did. So the Kai Mens were just more like Chinese yoga exercises, just different things. And we had notebooks, stick men. This one's really good for digestion. This one's really good for a headache. This one's really good for this. So we were building up this little toolbox of movements for specific things. And but what I heard was, this is really good for this is really good for that. And when I went on my massage course, it involved some aromatherapy as well, because that was quite rare to get a course then. I had to go on an aromatherapy course to get massage certificates, because you couldn't go and do a degree in Chinese medicine like you can now. I would have loved that. The other alternative was to do a 2-year beauty therapist course, of which 10 or 8 weeks was massage. So I found an aromatherapy school, but again, it was all, this oil's really good for this oil's really good for that. And I started to think, but why are we like that in the first place? And then when I started to do my case studies with massage, which fed really into my Qigong, because people would come for that and I'd say, right, but come and do the movement as well. You can't just come and be massaged out. You've got to learn to get yourself right. They would come back with the same problems. I thought, what a waste of their money and their time. It's the same as in the Qigong sessions. They just come, turn up, do it and go. And I think, well, but why? So I stepped back from all the training I was doing and started to think, why? And I started to go down a different path. Why is your shoulder hurting? And if it is, can we do to help that? What are these movements really about? What are we really trying to achieve with the movements? And that is really the direction I went in. So yeah, so that
Yeah.
that was the plan.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? The way that, you know, with Qigong, you do seem to give people the tools to ask exactly those questions that you've asked, don't you? It's a powerful thing to play with.
Yeah, and you'll know because you've been doing it sort of probably as long or longer than I have. But back in those days, it was pretty unheard of. It was pretty weird. I mean, even massage was weird. People go, "You do what?" You know, it was all you do. What that Thai? What's that? And so, and what I realised is that there's a group of people like me. I'm a Tai Chi nerd. I talk to everybody all day, every day, for all day and night. I just love it. Then there are other people who need it, who are not really interested in that, but will still get a lot of benefit. So the sessions I started weren't really about come and learn this art. It was like, just come and give this a go. Didn't even really say what it was. Just come and have a go. And I knocked on as many doors as you could imagine. I've been to GP surgeries. I've been in the college. I stood in the middle of, on behalf of a college, I stood in the middle of a fair that was going on, just dragging people in, have a go at this, have a go at that. Every WI you could imagine, every garden talk group, I just turned up at everywhere I could get in, just to say, look at this, look at this, look at this. So it was quite hard in the beginning. It felt like there was a lot of doors I was having to knock down or have shut, but I think it's all those of us who've done the same kind of thing in our own areas. I think we're seeing. I'll step back now and I look and I think, oh, it's all that work, that push, advertising, promoting, it's all coming to fruition. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It's strange.
Yeah.
I often wonder whether there is an upsurge or there is a significant upsurge in people looking for Qigong, or whether we're just getting better at what we do. But I do see more and more about it, and it's definitely very much a growing area, and it seems to talk to people who want to go beyond the movement. They want to actually understand the stuff that's going on. So I was interested, and for people who've watched these before, you know, there's sort of a set script that we stick to. So now I'm going to veer off at a slight tangent, and yeah. I was wondering, because I always get asked this question about what's the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong, and I was wondering, do you get asked the question and how do you respond?
You see this funny face I pulled.
Yes.
So it's titles, isn't it? It's titles and vocabulary. So yeah, I do get asked the difference. And to be honest, I just tell everybody it's Tai Chi because my view is I want the general public to know what it is. If I just put Qigong, they don't know what it is, they can't say it, they can't spell it, no matter which version you put on. So mine's often just says Tai Chi Qigong. Yeah. And that's now, you know, before nobody knew what it was. And I think because in the beginning it was all very sort of family-based or club-based or lineage-based, whichever way you want to call it. But you turned up and that's what you learned, and there was no internet. You remember the days where there was no internet, and you'd maybe find a book and you'd read every page of that book. In half of it you wouldn't understand what it really meant because you hadn't got there yet. There wasn't really the knowledge sharing either then, so you just got what you got, and the words they gave you were, so if they told you it was, I don't know, hip hop happy, I mean, you would have said, oh, I do hip hop happy. You wouldn't know. Because you didn't have any other frames of reference. Yeah. And I think it's only as the internet's opened up and we've opened up. And again, in the beginning, when I started, I wouldn't have been, my teacher wouldn't have been happy if I'd gone and done a class somewhere else with someone else. Yeah. You know, that was very disrespectful, whereas now we share it out. So what I've seen is the terminology change. And what I think, and this is just my perception of what the public think it is now, is Tai Chi is that moving around that you see people do in the park dance, and Qigong is the more static. Static's not the right word, but breathing exercises for health and well-being.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, but of course the more martial side of everything and the diehards and the clubs and everything else will be horrified at that. But that seems to be what the general perception is. And I'm talking about the person in the street who's never seen or heard of it before, except a bit on a telly, calendar girls, you know, the GP says, go along and do Tai Chi because it's good for you, because they know, they're told and they tick a box. But they could turn up with a group of people who are doing martial arts, because of course the other sides of Tai Chi is the Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that isn't going to help the 79-year-old lady who's got bad knees and hips.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so it's difficult. It's terminology, it's vocabulary. And you've just got to turn up to a session that's near you, find a teacher that works for you at a time and day that works for you, and movements that works for you. That's what I recommend to everybody. Try lots and lots and lots of different ones.
Yeah, I absolutely couldn't agree more. I mean, I always express myself as purely a Qigong teacher, but it's just the way that I express it. And as you say, it's just a word, you know, and quite often people will come through because they've heard that it's good for you, but they don't know what it is and they can't pronounce it. So as you say, calling it Tai Chi, why not? Why not?
So about just to finish that,
yeah.
about 5-6 years ago, my husband and I, we saw there was a guy doing a qigong session. Well, I went to two, so a couple of months. I'm always exploring. I always want to develop myself. So I rang them up and said, look, this is who we are and what we do. Would you mind? Because I just like to come along and do things for me, which is very hard once you become a teacher. And they were happy with that. So when we went along to this qigong session, we spent the time in partnered work, either me pinned against the wall and having to use my chi to push my partner away or various across the room things. It's like more martial side, and all the other way around. And it was very much more the practical application bordering on the Kung Fu, and that was labeled Qigong. And then went the opposite, and I went to see a guy and I trained with him on and off for a while. Actually, he was a lovely guy. And I went there and I'd never come across standing Qigong before, like the standing pulse stuff, not in its true essence. So I'd gone from that, pushing off the wall, using our chi to sort of ward off and everything. And then I went to this other Qigong session and he just said, right, we're just going to stand here for 45 minutes. I was like, you're kidding. And I said, you're going to want me to stand here for 45 minutes? He says, well, why can't you? And I was like, oh, that's a point. And we did, and it was amazing. So how can the general public know the difference? How?
It is so difficult, and I completely agree with what you said there. Your best thing to do is to just go and try one, and through the One Chi project, what we're hoping to do is create a little bit of an insight into the way that different schools work, and so you know, you'll be able to get a feel for the people that you're going to go and see. But yeah, just like you never really know. And yeah, I can tell you some pretty alarming stories about turning up in the early days into sessions, and you're thinking it's one thing, and it's just like, oh, okay. But yeah. You mentioned lineage there, and I'm always curious about this. So I was wondering if you could say something about sort of the difference between lineage and non-lineage forms, where you stand on this, what your feelings are.
Well, as I said, I started at a Tai Chi club, and that is not a very common style of Tai Chi. It's Lee family style, elderly, and I think in those days as well, people were always trying to have that credibility. It's about credibility. And when people say, but this is my lineage, my teacher was this person, because especially Western teachers as well, teaching an Eastern art, they always wanted to show that they had this connection, to try and prove that they weren't, I don't know, cowboys, for want of a better expression, and also that they were true and all of that. I think there was a lot of that at the beginning as well. But as I said, when you turn up to our club and you just do that, you're told about lineage, but because you don't have any access to anybody else, because that's the only one in your area or whatever else, there's the odd book or there's no internet, then there was never really this sort of it. You say, all right, my teacher is trained, so that's fine. They've got this people they trained with, so they must be all right. And you don't think anything of it. But then it also had an egotistical side to it, you know, as well. So there's all of that goes on. as we've all opened out and I've moved away from my first club and a few other people I've trained with to gain wonderful experience of different styles, um, I'm a rebel. I don't want to be told to do that because that's what it's always been done. Um, I was So whatever posture it is, whether it's a Tai Chi form, whether it's a Qigong movement, everybody's different. So if you stand in a particular position, the shape and size of you is completely different to the shape and size of me. So our arms and hands will never ever be in the right place. And then, you know, I've damaged my shoulder a few years ago. So that arm is never going to be quite the same. It's got loads of flexibility, but there are sometimes I just have to be more careful with it. So again, there are certain movements on certain days I'll not be able to achieve on that day. So I think you always have to listen to your body. And I think that's where I moved away from, this is how it's always been done. I get you need a starting point, you need a routine, and then you reach a point where you start to understand your own body. I think the beginning bit, the routines and the structure, is there for safety, providing it's given correctly. And I know you're supposed to be asking questions as and when you're ready, but when I show you a bit of movement or whatever, I'm going to explain that in movement. I'm going to explain my ethos in movement. So that would really, I'm a visual person, I'm a hands-on, sensual person. I'm not very, I talk, but I'm less intellectual and more doing and hands-on.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, before we go there, before we go to actually sharing a little bit of practice together, I'd like to sort of roll two questions together. And the two questions I'd like to roll together are, what have you gained from Qigong and what do you love about Qigong?
Well, Qigong gave me my life back. That's it. When I started, I was working mum with a very young family. I'm from the north, living 200 miles away, so I didn't have a family network. And I pretty much spent most of my early youth exhausted. It got me through. Other life events happened, and I don't know, about 2008, 2009, I completely crashed. Even though I was doing all of this, you know, we're not immune from big major life events. And what I realized then is that Qigong had been using it to keep me afloat rather than to get well. And that's a common thing for a lot of us, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, So the crash was horrendous physically. I think I spent virtually the first year in bed. To just sit up and eat was so exhausting, I had to go back. So, you know, ME, chronic fatigue, the whole thing. And I'd say now, so it's like 10 years on, I'm getting there. It's been a long, slow journey. So Tai Chi Qigong, at its essence, doing it for my body has given me my life back. So, you know, I relapse every now and then. 4 years ago, I reached a point where I couldn't walk up and down hills. I couldn't really, if I could walk on the flat, I was fine. Part of the reason we sold the house, because I had stairs, we were going to move into a bungalow. But the 2 years I've had at the flat has given me time to recuperate. And now we've bought a house with 2 floors. So, and if I take my time, I can get up and down the hills and get up and down the stairs. So, you know, but that's because I live and breathe Tai Chi Qigong, how I sit here, how I move, everything. Yeah. Because I haven't any physical strength anymore. I've lost all of that actual physicality. So everything I do has to be in posture, structure, breath, relaxation. And from that, people come to me because they're in that crash state. They're ill. That's part of what my holistic health studio is about. People come to me broken, and because I have been broken, I can help rebuild them. I can help them to rebuild themselves if they're willing.
Yeah, I so want to have this conversation with you because this is also my experience, that I got it wrong with Qigong and I broke, and actually then you start looking at it and going, how can you actually make it work for you? And that informs the way that you move from then on. And so, yeah, so I tell you what we'll do. Let's go in and do a little bit of practice together so people can get a feel for what it is you do.
Yes.
Then we'll draw the short session to a close, and then let's carry the conversation on. We'll record that, and then if you're watching and you're loving this, please come and join us. Listen to what happens once we've actually drawn the curtains on this last bit of practice. So
okay, so movement then.
Yeah,
so
please.
I'm going to use a movement from the Shibashi Qigong set 1, and in the next conversation I'll talk about why I use that set and all those reasons, not now, but it is taken from that, and it's just an example of what is seen on YouTube, what is taught, and how people believe they should do the movement, and where I see it should be. Okay, so that's how it's going to be. So the movement itself I'm going to use is called rowing a boat in the middle of the lake. Hopefully you can see my legs at the back, so just in our hip width. I'm going to change my glasses to the ones I can see from a distance. I'm of that age. I'm going to just do the full movement, so I don't want anyone to follow this bit. I just want you to see if you've done it. So this would be the full movement. That is seen. I'm going to do it really quickly, really quickly, really quickly. So full movement. This is rowing a boat in the middle of a lake. Okay. So the majority of people struggle to stand up. So just standing on their feet without the knees rolling in and the body's being all weak is really difficult. So we just stand comfortably. We do want to pull the tummy in and just sit as if you're going to sit on a high ledge. And we just open the arms out. Your fingertips want to point outwards. The issue is people think you're going up, so they think up. It's actually not. We're going out. And that in itself is strong for a lot of people, just that starting position to open all of this out. Then just relax as best you can. And when you feel ready, just breathe, just let your body expand from here and let your body expand outwards. So we go out, not up. So the fingertips point this way, not this way. We just go out. Your shoulders and body will decide where they reach. You never want the 100% because any tension, you're too far. We just go to here. Then we have to do a bit. So we roll it round to the front, a bit like this. And then we're just going to let it soften. So we want to be and not do. So this is the do. We turn the arms and settle. There's the doing. Now just breathe and be. Just let the body expand. Let the tendons lengthen. The wrists, the fingertips, let the body open. Now, because we can't keep breathing in and breathing into here, because we're not there yet, we have to do a little bit in the middle. So we just bring the arms round like this. It's just to bring us back to this bit here. And then we can just relax and we can go back to being again. And the beauty of Qigong is that you repeat and repeat and repeat. And you would just keep repeating until you reached a point where your body was ready to go further. But it's not the goal. It's the journey. It's not the destination. There should never be a goal, except that nothing should hurt. Everything should be relaxed. And then we'll just bring our hands to our dantian. So if we were repeating 8 of those, you wouldn't do 8 full movements. You would actually, maybe by the time you got to 8, you would have reached a point where your body had responded. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I put you on camera there because I just wanted to join in because I think we can all learn so much from each other. And yeah, I, again, completely with you. It's about listening to yourself. It's about knowing where you're working with. So yeah. Well, thank you very much, Debbie. It's been an absolute joy talking to you. And yes, and you changed your glasses so you can see me again, which is possibly not an advantage. But yeah, as I say, thank you
very much. I've loved it. Thank you very, very much.
Okay, take care. Thank you.